All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott back again for another episode of the Nolecast. A Nolecast that I am eagerly excited to do, Bud. That's fun. There's been some always love doing the Nolecast, and there's been a couple recently that have been more challenging, but we got some good schedule talk here. We can go over that, look at who you're playing, who's playing before you play them, get as good of an idea. Interesting wrinkle with the schedule, having the third bye week worked in because of the Ireland game. But fun conversation tonight. Working on hotel Wi-Fi. So one, apologies that we're starting a little late. I was trying to get on the better system here. So that's on me, not Bud. And if we have some difficulties, apologize. Just trying to make the most of what we can. So we'll thank all of our sponsors. Bud literally just put down the last parts of a Reuben sandwich to come back here after having a little dinner meeting, and can assure you that Madison Social is as quality as it's ever been, and fortunate to continue to work with those guys as we have since really the inception of the Nolecast.
Dude, Reuben Day is always a great day there. I shout out to Jim Harbaugh for delaying their announcement of going to the Chargers until after I finished making some like Korean style short ribs on the Blackstone for the family. So that was good. I don't cook a lot during the season, so in the off season I try to take a day or two off the wife's plate and just have me be responsible for the plate. So also when you're cooking outside, less mess inside, just generally good. However, Matzo Reuben, can't beat that, man. That is good stuff. We know a lot of our fans hop in there and they're big fans of Matt and the crew. Dude, so the schedule dropped today. Well, I guess it dropped Monday and it also dropped Tuesday, and it also dropped today. It's a little pathetic that like the ACC does this like copycat. I know why they do it. I mean, the SEC network has like a successful playbook, and that's how they roll it out and whatever. I guess we'd be sitting here criticizing them if they didn't make a big deal out of the schedule and do a multi-day reveal like the SEC does. The problem is people don't give a damn, other than each team's individual fan base, about most of these games that don't involve FSU, Clemson, Miami, maybe to some extent UNC. So it doesn't hit quite the same. Like people are not like, oh, gotta see what the whole ACC schedule is. Whereas, ESPN and Good Morning America are doing the SEC, man.
Yeah, not quite the broader cross appeal. You're right. I will give them credit. One, there's some comments, and I've received a couple text messages. We've been recording Battles In videos and interviews with the players all day, so that's the rather extensive light setup. If you see that in the background here, I have not spent thousands of dollars on lights for the Nolecast quite yet, but maybe at some point. I will give him credit, man. Wasn't it just a couple years ago that we were talking about this, like in April or whatever?
Yeah.
Like the crazy late announcing of the schedule. So at least we've moved it up to January. Again, as someone who has a job that is tied at times to the logistics of the sport, I appreciate that a little bit as well. So, incremental progress, I guess, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, I saw your comment on the brands that drive, the vast majority of TV viewership. I think you said swap out Wisconsin for Miami, and you pretty much had the blue chip ratio or something like that. It's small, man. And the brands that drive TV viewership in this conference is very small. It's really one or two. So yeah, I don't see, Jim Phillips sitting next to Robin Roberts anytime soon on the GMA set to talk about the debut of the ACC schedule. But I am happy that they've at least pushed it up a little bit in the calendar, and we can sit here in the final days of January and have an idea as to what fall is going to look like.
I will say, off Jump Street, given that you are currently suing the conference, they could have, to some extent, screwed you and did not. Yeah. Now, to the extent of which they could have done it, I think is open for debate, because some of these games, if Florida State is doing its job, are not that difficult, right? Doesn't really matter what order you play them in. But some of them it does. Like they could have done some nasty stuff, short rest Clemson, or Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame within like a 4-week span or something. Like a 3-week span would just be too obvious. But they could have done some nasty stuff to you, and they didn't. I mean, you can nitpick some stuff here, I think, which is fair. But I mean, I'm trying to think of things that Florida State could have asked for that it didn't get. And I can't imagine that list is too long, honestly. So even if you wanted to screw them over, it didn't happen. At least not to my eye. What was your first reaction when you saw it?
More or less. I mean, you had an idea as to what 50 or 60% of this thing was going to be. Look, I knew it was coming. It still takes my eyes. I mean, I sent you a mock-up of what I thought the schedule would be earlier today, and I'm still like, 3 buys that's going to take some getting used to. Now, obviously, you're playing in Ireland, and that's going to have a ripple effect on the rest of your schedule. But it really does set up to, opening 2 games, bye, get a reset, go through the stretch there that ends at Clemson, bye, get a reset. The real meteor schedule that everybody's eyes are going to immediately go to is the Miami, UNC, whatever they look like this year, stretch with the Notre Dame trip. I guess a little bit later in the year than maybe I would have liked, but man, in in the year 2023, the beginning of November, it's not, it's not exactly like you're going up there in December 14th or something like that. So who knows? Maybe I jinxed it and it's 22 degrees with 3 inches of snow or something like that. But I think that'll be a pretty manageable game as far as a weather perspective. And then you get another bye and you run, have Charleston Southern and Florida. I just think the season uniquely kind of bifurcates itself, and pardon the pun using bye there, but you can break it into these segments, and hopefully if you hopefully you avoid what was this year's Duke game where you just had so many people injured. But if you do have something like that, you're never more than 2 or 3 weeks from a bye game to which you can try to get, or bye week rather, to which you can try to get to and see how many of those smaller injuries you can get taken care of.
Totally. I don't know that Florida State agreed to the game in Ireland because of this, but I love that they did because of the extra bye week it affords you. This is a team that it may have growing pains early, and not from a skill level necessarily, although we'll find out the skill level more as we go through spring and we go through summer workouts and we get the feedback and what we see in practice and whatnot. But you're probably going to need some more time to gel. And having 3 bye weeks is legitimately nice. They have 21 days between Notre Dame and Florida.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bye week, you get Charleston Southern. It's that's a big deal. Like, granted, Florida, who knows who will be their head coach or their quarterback by that time. But no coach at Florida State is ever going to turn down having 21 days between their last FBS game and playing the Gators. Like, that's
yeah, and it sets you up for a team that expects itself to be in the conference championship game. It sets you up for a nice stretch there, and if that goes well, I would love to think that Florida State's 13-0 this year or whatever. Maybe they're not. If they make the playoffs, I guess what I'm trying to say is if they make the playoffs, in my opinion, 1, they will, and 2, they're probably more likely to be a 5 through 12. Which means you've got a game coming up on either the 21st or the 22nd of December, and you've got another, stretch there of which you can kind of try to load manage and get yourself ready for the final run of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I know people go, oh, man, Miami, UNC, Notre Dame, whatever. I mean, there's always going to be a stretch in your season where you play some competitive games back-to-back or back. I think this is about as friendly of a setup as you could have hoped for.
100%. Yeah. We'll get there when we kind of go sequentially, but Ross Martin, who covers North Carolina, does a great job for 24/7 Sports. He tweeted that the 2 biggest games on Carolina's schedule were the game at Minnesota and the game hosting JMU, which, to be fair, is a damn good Sun Belt team and beat UVA and a bunch, like, they But I tweeted that and I said, is that not sort of a commentary on the state of the program in and of itself, this tweet? And some Carolina fans responded like, yeah, it could be a little bit of a step back this year. You do lose Drake May, who we've been working on some like social content coming up for Cover 3. Dude, Drake May. Not sure the coaching staff there did a whole lot to help him out this year. He did a whole lot to help that team out there. Like that guy is some of you're not going to look back and be like, man, I wish we could have played Drake May. You know, like that's not a thing that's going to be said. So Carolina's probably a step back team. If you had to play Miami or the Carolina team of the last 2 years and then Notre Dame in a 3-week span, I completely agree with that. But my hunch is that Carolina at home on what's probably either homecoming or parents' weekend is perhaps not quite as difficult, although it's a sandwich game to be sure. I mean, think about it. You got, it's sandwiched between Miami and the Irish. It may not be quite as tough as people think that it could be. So I love the Ireland game. I don't want to do this every single year. I think if you are somebody who owns a local business, you probably hate the Ireland game. That's completely understandable. But it is cool to go over there and do it, expose other continents to our sport more. And it's probably good exposure for the brand. It'll be a standalone game. Got to avoid the casinos, unlike what happened in Nebraska against Northwestern. If you guys know the story, then you know the story. But yeah, not something you need to be hitting up the night before the ball game or the early morning before the ball game. Cornhuskers. So yeah, if FSU can stay out of that casino that's by the stadium there, I think they should be. I mean, they're probably not going to crush Georgia Tech because Georgia Tech can score pretty good, but I don't know if they're going to play any defense.
Yeah. Georgia Tech's a nice little stretch for them. They like where they are with their quarterback, and Georgia Tech kind of knows where they are in the college football world right now when it comes to NIL, and I'll give them credit. They're doing a really good job of being smart about how they're doing that, and they're one of these teams that, in my opinion, is kind of like sneaky good at operating in modern college football right now. So, Abominable Snowman. Wasn't this guy, hadn't he been like a forever listener who maybe has gone away a little bit? Like great name. Always remember it. Appreciate
Did you know your name is an anagram for ramming this?
Ramming this. Didn't I'm not really like an anagram person in general. It's not the way my mind works, but I play Jeopardy with my wife every night. It's like the one thing that I tell her, like, I don't care what's going on. We will sit down for 30 minutes and watch Jeopardy. And I just can't. My mind doesn't work like that. I can't get any of those. Like, mix it up, reframe a word, whatever. So
like before and after, like where you got to kind of combine the word once.
Mix the two. It's
like
just
Thomas Jefferson Davis type thing.
Yes, it doesn't work.
Yeah. I did not know you were a big Jeopardy fan, man. When I was first dating my wife, I was over at their house, and her dad thought he was good at Jeopardy, and I don't know that I'm like good enough to win on the show. But I'm damn sure a lot better than he was, to the point where he thought I was cheating, like I was watching it at an earlier time or something. I was like, man, it comes on at 7 in Orlando. I don't know like how you get advanced copies of this.
Your story reminds me of one of my your story reminds me of one of my favorite athlete anecdotes of all time. This is back, like I used to RIP Sports Illustrated. My dad got me a subscription to Sports Illustrated when I was like 8 years old. I used to read it all the time at its heyday. It was awesome and incredible. And if you're in your late 30s or 40s or older, then you have an appreciation for what Sports Illustrated once was. But they did this profile on, I'm pretty sure it was Shannon Sharp, not Sterling, the tight end, not the wide receiver.
Right.
And he was like, man, if you ever watched Jeopardy with me, you'd be like, I swear to God, this guy pre-recorded this and knows all the answers or whatever. So
that's awesome.
So Sharp goes on Celebrity Jeopardy, okay, and gets asked a question, basically like, what direction is not included in a state's name? Boom, Sharp buzzes in. He goes south.
Wait.
I want to point out that Mr. Sharp played football at South Carolina State. That's some good old celebrity Jeopardy for you, and I appreciate the Nolecast listenership letting me hash out that monologue for a second, as it is one of the things that constantly lets me laugh when I think back at that
I
one.
was gonna say, like, I'm 100% sure he played for some. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I like the Ireland game. It's not a nothing team. I mean, Georgia Tech. We can definitely say that Georgia probably screwed around with them a decent bit and played with their food at times. But if you watch Georgia Tech down the stretch, they did find ways to score points on almost everybody. I think Buster Faulkner for them is a very respected young offensive coordinator. He was on Kirby's staff, and they scored points quite a bit in the bowl game against.
You did a great job against Miami in the final seconds of the game,
They
scoring
did.
points.
I mean, to scheme that open is
scheme that open. Yeah.
2 NFL safeties back there, man, and just it's a shame that had to happen. You come back now. You play a Labor Day game against Boston College. Did they announce this as night? I believe. I would assume.
It would almost have to be, I would think, but yeah.
Unless they announce some other Labor Day game, this is going to be the night game because the other Labor Day games so far really kind of suck. So, that would be my guess. I like that if it is the night game because that's great to beat the heat. Also, coming back from an international travel, having one extra day to get ready, to me is preferable. Just because BC did play you tough this year, and you could say you had the flu, and I 100% believe they did. Just from all the guys who are walking around with masks in September. But still, BC they're not good, but they're not so bad where you can just screw around the entire time and have like some international travel hangover and expect to just win by 40. Not with the uncertainty of this roster currently. Like, it's not a problem. It's just like there were more countable assets on last year's team. Like, you knew what you were getting with some of these guys. You know what I'm saying? This year has more uncertainty, which I think makes it more fun to cover, but also I'm glad we have the extra day there is what I'll say about that. And then you get your first year bye weeks, which I like that too. I don't hate this early bye week thing because you go overseas, you play Georgia Tech, come home, play Boston College on a Labor Day, and then you kind of need to settle into that Saturday to Saturday rhythm. It allows you. Some of these kids probably going to have some stuff with their classes, by the way, during this. Like, hey, okay, this class does this, and I have to post on this discussion board. Let me get in this kind of academic rhythm, because playing the Labor Day stuff and overseas, it's going to throw your just sort of everyday life schedule off too a little bit. How will home field advantage be with 50,000 capacity, enough to impact your gambling stuff? But not much, honestly. Like, to me, no, I don't think it's a huge disadvantage. Like, for the Florida game and for the Clemson game, somewhat more, because I think it matters more in those really, really big games. There is sort of like a variable home field advantage relative to spread, but again, they feel like they need to make these upgrades and changes to the stadium for more premium seating. They actually used the boosters, I believe, for their board meeting a couple of years ago, used the study that I had first made on Tomahawk Nation about the population within a certain ring, because nobody lives in the Gulf of Mexico, which is, so geographically, like, there's not a lot of folks that live within like a 2-3 hour drive of Tallahassee, outskirts of Jacksonville. Large swaths of like what you can get to in Alabama and Georgia are very sparsely populated. So yeah, it's just hard for people to day trip Tallahassee 7 times a year. Unlike Athens, I mean, they could fill that place with just the people who live in Atlanta and never have to buy a hotel. So, do you have any Boston College thoughts?
No, I mean, interesting Labor Day game. Interesting that you get you have 2 kind of national games there to open up with the starting the season in Ireland. And I got to imagine that's the first major college football game of the season. Boston College, whatever. I mean, they've got a nice components. Coach had a nice year when he kind of needed to make a bowl game last year and did. We'll see. I don't think that'll be a problem. All the stuff is true, but I think that sets up well for you, and you get a chance to have the bye week there, and then kind of fall into the traditional, schedule of having games when you expect them, with the exception of the Duke game's a Friday night.
Duke is a Friday night. Yep.
Yeah.
Also, if you're Adam Fuller, the only tape you really need to show the team is, hey, this Thomas Castellanos guy, he can go. He showed everybody in the world last year he can go against y'all. So you need to go ahead and lock in for this one. We got the bye week next week. Good week of practice. Let's go. So yeah, you should be 2-0 to the first bye. And then if you're Norvell, if you are, the challenge is going to be expressing to them like, hey, you guys think you're hot stuff. You're not. There's still a lot more stuff to work on if you want to get to your goal, which when I eyeball this schedule, my thought is, all right, if they're not in the playoff hunt, like into November, I'm going to be disappointed. If they make a good effort and they don't make the playoff, but they're they're actually in the hunt late in the season, I'm not going to lose my stuff over that, right? Because that means you probably turned in, I don't know, like you finished probably somewhere like back half of the top 25. Okay. And even if that were to happen, which I think there's a decent shot they can make the playoff, honestly. But if it did happen, like, okay, whatever. Like you're still establishing 2022, you won 10 ball games. Last year you went 13-0, and then, whatever. I don't count that stupid bowl game. And then, you would have another season in which it's 9, 10, 11 wins. Like that's pretty consistent. If you're winning 35-ish ball games, 34 ball games in 3 years, people take notice of that for sure. So I think the next stretch is super important because getting to 5-0 matters. So you get Memphis come to town. 90-second scouting report on Memphis. The Hennigan kid is probably the best G5 quarterback. I know a number of teams tried to get with him, and he just decided he wants to stay at Memphis. I don't know if he just loves their staff or it's family money or whatever it is, or maybe Memphis got that FedEx check for NIL. Who knows? But I'll tell y'all right now, if you can't get to him, and Memphis does have a lot of turnover on the offensive line, so I've already been looking into that a little bit. That kid's one of the better quarterbacks you'll play all year. I know he plays for Memphis. I'm just telling you, I watch a lot of Memphis. He's pretty damn good. Hennigan is his name, Seth Hennigan. Their corners are some of the absolute worst corners you will ever see play D1 football. I'm talking, I don't think any of the Memphis corners would be on scholarship here. It was unplayably bad. Everybody that played them, it was just, all right, so we're going to have to score 50 today to win 50-42. It was seriously, if you look at some of their scores, it was pretty horrible. So again, it's a home game. It's probably not a night game, I would guess, because it's this could be a game where if you're in the stands, bring an extra bottle of water because you may need to score. If they put up low 20s on you, don't freak out. It's a better offense than what you saw this year from the Hokies. Certainly Duke with a hurt Leonard. They can score, and they have some actual NFL guys on the outside. I know some dudes on Iowa State staff who said their skill talent was as good as anybody they really faced in the Big 12 outside of Oklahoma. So, look, again, this will be a legit challenge for the defense. It will probably, if it's a challenge for the offense, we got problems. Okay, because you should score every freaking drive against these guys. They're legitimately very bad. Yeah, so they allowed they started out okay, and then Missouri put 34. They beat Boise on a blocked punt and a blocked field goal. They allowed 32. Then they held Tulane to 31 at home, and then it kind of went nuts. UAB had a boatload of yards on them, 45-21. They won. And then North Texas put 42 on them. USF scored 50. Charlotte scored 38. SMU scored 38. Temple, which was a dumpster fire and a half this year, scored 21. And then they beat Iowa State in the bowl game. So, yeah, that's a game you should score some points, and you may allow a little more points than you're totally comfortable allowing, I guess, just because people aren't going to. Memphis has better personnel than some of these ACC teams you're going to face on offense. Yeah. Defensively, they do not. That's probably a lot of Memphis talk. I apologize.
Yep, Mike facing his old team, and I went to like a very, very small college, and it cracks me up that Ryan Silverfield was at Hampton Sydney while I was, and that's just
Really?
I'm still struggling to wrap my mind around that. Yeah, yeah. So,
Um,
kid out of Jacksonville, Florida, nice guy from the very brief interactions what I had with him, and I know Mike Norvell thinks exceptionally highly of him as well professionally. So,
absolutely.
that'll be a fun game to see.
Speaking of things that you didn't think would last or just from a long time ago, I'm gonna read you a list here. This is kind of a good little interlude.
Oh, I've got on the next Nolecast, assuming
Yeah, what
we
you
can
got?
do this. I've got some footage of Mike Norvell playing ball as a wide receiver.
Do
that we
you?
can look at.
Let's
Yeah,
break it down.
yeah, we'll break it down. Got 3 or 4 clips that I think we can play. So
Nice. I love it. Footage. We will break that. We got to make a YouTube short out of that too. Are they catches? Like, I mean, I don't want to spoiler it. Like,
yeah, there's I know
we got
one
highlights.
of them. I think we've got 2 catches to show. Yeah,
I like it. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
one of them, if I remember correctly, is a little bubble screen or something. You get to see Mike out there doing some things.
Got some wheels.
Yeah.
All right. So check this list out. Buffalo, Lance Leipold. Central Michigan, John Bonamigo. Colorado State, Mike Bobo. Florida, Jim McElwain. Houston, Tom Herman. Kansas, David Beatty. Michigan, Jim Harbaugh. Nebraska, Mike Riley. Oregon State, Gary Anderson. Pittsburgh, Pat Narduzzi. SMU, Chad Morris. Troy, Neil Brown. UNLV, Tony Sanchez. Tulsa, Philip Montgomery. Wisconsin, Paul Christ. That is the list of coaches who were hired in 2015. There is one coach hired a decade ago who is still at his job, Narduzzi, who you don't play this year anyway. But with Harbaugh off to the NFL tonight, it made me think, like, who's still around there from that era. Let me see here. How is the I've actually had the battles in tequila. I don't know why I'm asking. That's actually excellent.
Yeah. you were able to get the first bottle that was ever brought about. I'll post a link to it in the comments. I got a text from our tequila partner over the weekend, and he's like, "Dude, we're outselling like massive brands online. How is this happening?" I'm like, people want to support things.
Take that, George Clooney.
Yeah. And the tequila happens to be very good. So yeah, did put a link in there if any of you are interested in it. I think we might have a vodka, and then I've always had a interesting relationship with a certain Scotch company over in Isla, and we may actually be buying like what's known as a hogshead of Scotch directly from them, and we'll see. We're working on it. Might have some cool things coming.
If you need a Battles in bourbon hookup, I may have a guy.
We'll be there. Well, that'll complete the triumph. Definitely
cool. Although my buddy in Nashville is a shareholder at this thing. It's actually the largest whiskey and bourbon collection in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So
I've had some people talk to me about this.
We may have to like just, you may have to have a business meeting up there, like legit it, and we'll have to check that out. All right, so look, Memphis, we just talked about. They might be the best G5 team out there. You're still Florida State, and you're Florida State, and you are doing a nice job with personnel. And we know Mike Norvell can really coach, so you should beat them. Cal comes in after playing San Diego State, so they should be pretty fresh. It is still I think a difficult game for Cal to come play in that heat. Although I will note this year, they went and played North Texas, which is terrible, but still they played at North Texas in the second week of the season or the first week of the season. So it was pretty hot in Denton, Texas. And they won by 40. So it didn't seem to affect them this year. Florida State's a little bit different animal than North Texas, obviously. Cal is, I don't know, like they're not horrible, but not good. You get them in the heat, you get them at home. There's no real look ahead here for you because you have SMU on deck. If you've taken care of the first 3, you should take care of number 4 here. And you think they do Parents Weekend here? Because I don't know. You're going to do homecoming for Cal?
Yeah, I imagine it'll be Parents Weekend. People like to do Parents Weekend fairly early. Um, Parents Weekend is crazy. I mean, I think it's busier than homecoming, to be honest with you. It's insane how many people come back for that early. I imagine that this would be Parents Weekend. Yeah.
Makes sense. Then a trip to SMU. I think SMU is a top half team in the league. Others because it's their first year, so we don't really know exactly how well they're going to compete in the league. BC beat them in the bowl game, but it was freezing rain in Fenway Park. And I think SMU was a little bit disappointed to be there because they thought they were going to be the team selected to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and instead it was Liberty. And so I can't imagine they were super hyped up to go play in super cold temps in Fenway against Boston College. But still, they did lose that. So you should be favored there. I will note, SMU does have a bit of a hangover effect here because they have to play TCU the week before, and that game is called the Battle for the Iron Skillet, and that is like their Florida. Like that's their big rivalry in the city. So if you believe in the hangover effect, there's certainly some potential for that there for SMU. Not that they wouldn't care about the FSU game, but still, like that's an emotional game for them the week prior. And they did lose last year to TCU. TCU beat them because SMU just couldn't score in the red zone at all, if I recall, on that game. Anyway, I like it's an easy game to fly to. Like, how often does FSU play games on the road, man? That's easy to get to.
Yeah. Pretty close to Love Field, in fact. Not just flying to Dallas. Very easy.
Exactly. And, then the big one. Probably the first game that the first five, I'm not saying you're guaranteed to win them, but there is a hope now that you have the program. There's sort of an expectation of 5-0. Certainly, if you're an optimistic fan at all, right? If you're modeling it, like I understand 4-1 is probably a little slightly more likely than 5-0, but I mean, if you're rooting out there, like you're thinking 5-0 is the start.
Yeah.
Then Clemson comes to town, man. And I don't know, like, is FSU going to be picked to win the league? Is Clemson? Is Miami? I think some people will get cute with Louisville. I'm not buying that, but we'll see. This is going to be an all-out war, and it ain't going to be easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. This is, I don't want to say the last year because they're still recruiting high-end high school talent, but Clemson's elite pieces are as good as anybody in the league, if not better. I mean, they've still got some supreme pieces. Florida State's top end is very, very good, and there's pieces on this roster that I wouldn't trade with anybody. But Clemson still has elements of one of those super high-end high school recruiting teams and programs, but those elements are becoming fewer and fewer. I'll put it that way. It is January 24th, Bud. Maybe I missed it today, but Clemson didn't take anybody in the portal. I take it. So
I check it every morning. So I'll update you tomorrow morning just in case Clemson snuck one in.
Okay.
But
we're still a goose egg on the portal, most likely. That's very interesting. I mean, that was not the feedback that I was getting as far as what was going to occur. Like there were some signs that Clemson was starting to engage the portal more aggressively, or at least, the idea of transfers and, trying to well position themselves for kids, I'll put it that way. So didn't come to fruition, or at least it hasn't yet.
Did you read the Athletic article?
I did not. When was this?
I think it was Monday, about like how Clemson is trying to use the portal and they just haven't landed anybody yet, but they are going after guys, and they named some guys that they offered and went after. So, which begs the question, like, you guys are pretty good at recruiting high school players. Why do you have to be so bad at, maybe they're just way too selective, or they're not going about it the right way. I don't know, but they named a couple. The Oluwatimi kid, who 2 years ago went to Michigan, the center from UVA, and I think they named 2 guys this year who they offered. But yeah, again, it almost doesn't count. At
Yeah,
least in
I
high
had a
school
friend of mine
recruiting.
talk to me about this article. Didn't they name like 4 kids over the last 3 years or whatever? It
Right,
was
correct. Yeah.
kind of bizarre.
I was like,
But
this
yeah,
is strange.
yeah.
Um, I love our comment section. Okay. But look, they still have Parker. They still have Woods. They still have a bunch of dudes who are certainly top line players for them. I am interested, as I think you are alluding to, how weak are the weaknesses? Because we know the strengths are really damn strong.
Mhm.
Do we think that Garrett Riley is an elite OC? Because he put it on Michigan in the playoff game, and they didn't look great this year. They struggled at times. Certainly, part of that I think was receiver. Part of that was probably quarterback. Does Cade Klubnik take a leap? Do the receivers take a leap? I don't know. If they do take a leap, they're probably a justifiable favorite to win the league. But and I say that because there's no more divisions. In a division era, I think Florida State is the favorite to win the league because you get the Clemson home game.
Right.
So there's a chance that Clemson would get shut out of the championship game. But if Clemson actually hits the ceiling on some of these guys, and they get the offense fixed, then I think it's, I don't know, I don't think there's a huge difference between the top couple teams in this league, which makes it very intriguing to cover, but certainly nail biting.
Yeah. We saw Chad in the chat earlier tonight. Big shout out to the team at Legendary. Chad has helped my man Bud there with 2 different home loans, and Florida State fans well into the 500s, probably approaching 550 at this point. It's been one of the better partnerships in American sport podcasting, and we're ever so fortunate to have Chad and his team working with us. So big shout out to them. Bud, you have a unique perspective, having worked with them twice, and always want to thank the Legendary team for what they've done for the Nolecast.
844 FSU loan is the number to call. As far as game day possibilities for Clemson, I'm looking at this. Tennessee, Arkansas, no. Missouri A&M, unlikely. Ole Miss, South Carolina, almost certainly not. Auburn, Georgia, kind of doubt it unless Auburn's early schedules are really cake, and then they could be undefeated against Georgia, whatever. But as far as brand name, that's not really going to get it. UCLA, Penn State, probably not. Iowa at Ohio State, God, I hope not. Although, can't say who it is, but I did hear Iowa might hire a shockingly competent offensive coordinator. So be on the lookout for that if that happens. I was like, wow, okay, this guy must be getting paid a bag to do that because obviously they don't play a lot of offense. Michigan at Washington is one that would be a possibility, but that's not a great game given everything that Washington lost. So I'm looking at this, man. There's Alabama, Vandy. No, I think that Clemson, Florida State. Do you think this was placed here strategically by the ACC? Because this
possibly,
looks like a marquee game.
Yeah, I knew everybody has their theories about the ACC, but ACC's got to be careful getting too vindictive against Florida State because it's the only thing that makes its money. I mean, it's the only thing that draws eyes to the sets, and they're going to have to, at some point, they've got to go out and champion their own viewership numbers, and they need to do that with as strong a case as possible. And Florida State's what gives them that opportunity. So, I don't trust me. There's certainly a unique relationship right now, but everybody I almost started to say Greensboro, I guess now Charlotte, is well aware as to the TV brand that Florida State is and its unique ability to draw national eyeballs that few, if any, other brands or logos in this conference have.
That is a shockingly poor weekend aside from that game. And so if the ACC did pick it, great job for sure. SMU Louisville, also a pretty decent competitive game that I would enjoy watching on that weekend. So if you get through Clemson, You get another bye, which is nice. And then you go. If you're going to play a short rest road game, short rest, but really what I just mean is weekday, going to play at Duke, which is not a super hostile environment, although Clemson did get clipped this year on the road at Duke. Pro tip, don't fumble 4 times in the red zone.
To avoid that.
Good way to lose games. And if you do tackle the guy, don't allow him to have like 90-yard returns. Pro tip 2.0. If you're going to play one of these weeknight games, it is helpful to have the extra rest. So I like that. And then because you play the Friday, that means that you get an extra day to prep for Miami.
Yeah.
Which I listed as an away game, but I should probably just put like in/A, which is not available, but also here stands for like neutral/away, because Florida State fans are going to show up for that and take a knee and really claim their spot in those stands. So you got to like that Miami has to go play at Louisville the week before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. Absolutely.
Did they play Louisville this year? I'm trying to think what. Oh, they did.
They did.
Yeah.
They did play
Louisville beat them.
Yeah. It's a good setup. Yeah, I mean, it is. You get the extra day. What I imagine is you'll fly home. You'll get back to the facility at probably 2 or 3 in the morning on Saturday. Give everybody, you do stuff on Sunday, etc. But have that extra day, rest, and then start to look at Miami in a kind of quasi-neutral site game, as you said there. But the game at this point, probably the I don't know if it's the game of the season per se, but it's the game that will go the furthest to dictate what your broader season looks like as far as postseason potential, etc. In my opinion. Yeah, we'll circle the calendar because Lord knows that game's not important to people otherwise. But everybody knows October 26th, and everybody knows what it means when those two programs get on the field.
Now, I will say Miami's schedule is quite weak.
Yeah.
So there is some chance that is a night game that you get game day there. I mean, I'm looking at other games here that are really going to matter. Like Illinois, Oregon's a no. Nebraska, Ohio State's probably not going to be a conflict as far as game day. Also, that'll be on a different network because it's a Big Ten game now. I mean, LSU, A&M, I guess. Oklahoma at Ole Miss certainly could be one if Ole Miss is still undefeated by that point, or if they're like a one loss. Missouri, Alabama. But we don't have a Texas, Georgia where it's like, okay, it's obvious they're going to go to that game on that weekend. So again, ACC, I don't know if Phillips is pulling some like Ninja Swafford type moves here, but that's a well-scheduled game in terms of getting the national spotlight on your programs.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Wake Forest, like FSU being in these spots that are sort of like unopposed. How is the fastest growing program in America in terms of viewership got to keep up?
How does the brand keep growing? It's a great question, man. It's a great question. Good one. It's a very good one.
Yeah, look, I think Miami went 7-5 this year because their coach had one of the all-time dumbass moves I've ever seen. Right? They probably played at like an 8-4 type level. Their schedule gets considerably easier. They're probably better at every single position except for safety, although I'm willing to hear arguments to the contrary, clearly. And some of those better are probably just marginal. But they should be a better team. Like, if I'm a Miami fan, if they don't go 10-2, I'm pretty pissed, given that cakewalk of a schedule and giving this is sort of their chips to the middle type thing, which
they're committed from an NIL perspective. Definitely.
Ain't no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Although I think Florida State is too, man.
Yes, I would say
Florida State is not hanging back in the cut. Like they want to play. Like I did do a breakdown today. Did you see the rumors about Ohio State's $13 million transfer class? I played around with some numbers here. And I just cannot get to that number or even
13, just the class itself is 13 million. I thought they were trying to get to a total roster of 13.
Lane Kiffin retweeted a site that was sort of like a bro Bible equivalent that said that they spent $13 million. Like, their transfer class only has 5 guys in it. Like, are we talking like a $5 million Will Howard here? Or like a
yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
thought like 3.7 seems like even on the high end, but somewhat believable when you're signing like 2 quarterbacks, you know, an elite running back, you know, like that. But 13 for the whole roster, given that they kind of have FSU situation, right? A whole lot of guys decided to come back because they didn't love their draft stock and thought they could improve it. FSU situation from last year, I guess. Anyway, yeah, Miami's competitive. Wouldn't it be hilarious if you spoiled that all in hand that they're pushing on? So, you know, just gotta see. Coaching does matter. It does quite a bit. All right, UNC, we already went over it. You lose Drake May, you lose Tez Walker, you lose Diego Pounds, the starting left tackle. Ole Miss manages to pluck him away in the transfer portal. No tampering, of course, and a couple other guys as well are gone. I don't know, like the hire Jeff Collins at DC. You think? I think they take a major step back, but we'll see just how big of a step back that is.
It feels that way. It feels as though this is a program that had a little mini window and maybe missed it. But you know, we'll see.
Completely.
There's times where that head coach is overperformed when you write him off, and when you expect a lot, maybe it doesn't happen. So we'll see what happens there.
I kind of want Alford to troll Miami by sending them a request to do FSU's homecoming in Hard Rock because of like due to the construction, right? In could we just do homecoming in Doak South, and just so I can FOIA it and make a news item out of it, which would be hilarious. But if failing that, it's probably UNC, right, for homecoming. I would think.
Yeah, I would imagine that's your homecoming game. Yeah,
because would you do homecoming for Clemson? I guess you could. It just seems homecoming parents weekend back to back early seems like to have that all done by the first week of October seems early.
Yep.
What else do we have here? Oh, and then you go to Notre Dame. I found the average temperature for November 9th over the last 5 years at 7 o'clock, 54 degrees.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not good. Freezing to death. That's like bring a decent jacket.
It's a good reflection of the two of us. I'll just kind of loosely grab things as I remember it, sometimes accurate, sometimes not. Bud goes and grabs a Farmer's Almanac and gives you the temperature of the last 5 years. So nice. Good deal.
I mean, look, could it be cold? Yes. There's also a year in which it was like 68. So in that case, probably no jacket, I would think. There's probably some wind at field level. Yes, but Bill's asking about that. I don't know. Their grass will probably. Well, don't they have turf now?
I do believe they have turf.
I thought they went turf. Yes, so they can't grow it super long like they did in 1993.
Yeah.
Preliminary thought on Notre Dame. Offensive line takes a fairly significant step back. Joe Alt is their left tackle, who's off to the NFL. Mercifully, is one of the better left tackles we've seen in college football in a couple of years. So that is a significant loss. They did add Riley Leonard from Duke. He's a player that. FSU saw last year, albeit he was hurt. So, and then their defense honestly should be the best defense you face. And I don't think by a lot, but if I had to kind of place my chips on what defense is the best defense, I think I would go with the Irish. I mean, they have kind of premier players at almost every level. They cover pretty well. Al Golden actually is their DC. So, blast from the past. I'm beginning to think Al Golden was not a good fit at Miami, but also Miami maybe didn't support him real well, considering like they out and out lied to him about like when he took the job about what penalties were coming from the NCAA. Remember that?
That's right. That's right.
Good start. Yeah, let's have your head coach pissed off immediately about kind of bait and switch there. Ferg's hitting up in the chat. How do I feel about the new Harvard offensive line transfer? Actually, I was looking at some metrics earlier. So now granted, this is the Ivy League. Kid's name's Jacob Rizzi, interior offensive lineman. You can't be a graduate transfer and play in the Ivy Leagues. They don't allow it. So if you want to keep playing ball and you're in an Ivy, you got to move somewhere else. again, Ivy League's not real high level competition. However, he was within their league 99th percentile in impact block percentage, 99th percentile in havoc rate allowed, 99th percentile in run disruption rate allowed, 91st percentile in stuff rate allowed, and like 80th percentile in pressure rate allowed. So I would say I feel good, actually. I've not watched his clips yet because I'm just going to wait till he committed, which he did right before he went on the show. So nice get, I think, for Alex Atkins. Like, I'm not going to turn down a guy who's that old, who's played a lot of football, who has a decent understanding of what he's doing. You know, we have high hopes for this team. We also are conscious of, like, one of the goals is don't have a major backslide. You know, like, I think that's equally important for Mike's long-term success in Tallahassee, is continuing to build on things and showing that you didn't build a team, you're building a program. You know, we can admit last year's team's probably a little better than this year's team, but it doesn't have to fall off a cliff. So getting a guy that old who's played that much ball, I think that helps you. I don't know if he starts or not. We'll see, but I don't hate having that guy on the team. So that's cool stuff there. Let me see what else. Oh, so Notre Dame, like, that's one of two games that I think you're most likely to be an underdog in. But I don't think you're like a major dog unless you just played worse than I think you're going to play, or unless Notre Dame just finds an incredible offense somehow, which Leonard's a good player, but they haven't had receivers for a couple of years. So who knows? I mean, if you get through that game undefeated, you're not guaranteed to go to the playoff, but you're damn close.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'd hate to see the series of events where you don't make the playoff. I mean, I guess you could. Yeah, I mean, if you get through undefeated, we're certainly going to operate in a world in which you win your next two games, particularly thanks to the wonderful fifth column rather that Bud created for us and for our podcast listeners. It is the teams that play the team leading up before Florida State plays them. And for Florida, Georgia at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss in a year in which they are fully committed, and then Florida State with 0 breaks in between.
No bye week?
Good luck, Florida. Good luck with that.
What are the odds Napier is coaching them?
25%, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would go with too. If they fire Strickland this spring or early summer, then you got to think that the writing's on the wall. If they don't, then maybe I'm misreading that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll get to see some DJ Lagway in that game. Hell, maybe Luke will get in. That'd be cool. Or Brock or whomever. But that's tough. I mean, just from an attrition standpoint, man, even if you're playing better than you could hope to be playing, UGA at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss at Doak. I mean, what's the worst team you're playing there? Top 15 level? I mean, UGA is my number 1. I think Texas is like my number 4. Ole Miss is like my number 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm a little high on them. I moved FSU into my top 15 and after the transfer stuff. I feel so bad for Florida. Like, that's a really, like, I don't know what they're going to do, man. That's very difficult. Yeah, that is tough. Charleston Southern, before that, by the way, good game to take some little kids to. I would say, probably. Nice weather.
Yeah, nice November weather. Absolutely.
Could be band day or like Boys and Girls Club day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Although maybe not this year with the stadium capacity reduced. Like, you may not have quite as many,
May not have as many. And I don't know that you'll have, last year was obviously a very special year, but the odds that I would have given you on selling out Northern Alabama last year was wild. So who knows? This fan base likes to respond to a winner, and if you're, undefeated, or if you have one blemish, I could see Charleston Southern being a better attended game than maybe we think it would be.
I think so too, man. Also, there's an aspect of it's going to be a tougher ticket than normal, so people I think will be more jumping at the opportunity to get get a game like that.
Yeah, agree.
So let's discuss a little congruity and then kind of get into like overall recap thoughts. And then I've got some interesting looks at other schedules of some of FSU's opponents and other conference contenders.
Yeah. Congruity's been nothing but a lifesaver for us at the Nolecast as a small business. Been great to partner with from the Battles In perspective. I can tell you they are officially our payroll partner, and there's nobody else that I'd rather work with than Matt and his team. Matt Lewis, fantastic Noel, been great for more than 10 Florida State affiliated businesses, somebody that we wholeheartedly recommend and have little to zero reservations that they will do right by you in the same manner that they have us. So congruityhr.com is the website. Matt Lewis is the person that you want to work with, I can assure you, and we thank them for all that they've done for the Nolecast over the years.
Is there a road game that you're really excited to get to on this continent?
Notre Dame is a must for me. Absolutely.
Have you done it before?
I've actually done it for 2 games that weren't Florida State games.
Got it. Okay. So
I've gone up there for a couple Georgia Tech games
nice.
With friends, but yeah.
Nice, man. All right. So what's our biggest complaint here? If we have, we're Florida State guys, we have to complain about the schedule. That is ACC tradition. We need to find something to complain about. What do we want to complain about here?
Yeah, Miami, UNC, Notre Dame all together again, but I think we're looking at UNC still thinking of them as the team this year and last year. I don't know, man. It's tough. Maybe that you travel to SMU before you play Clemson, but I'm reaching.
At least that's an easy flight.
Yeah. It's direct. Not that they don't charter, but what are the 3 cities that you fly directly to from Tallahassee right now are Dallas, Atlanta, and Charlotte. And then I think they're adding Fort Lauderdale or something like that in the near future. So, yeah, it'll be easy flight. There's not a whole lot, man. You and I both, when we got a chance to chat earlier in the day, thought that if the schedule looks the way that we thought it was going to, that this is a pretty favorable schedule. And this is more or less what we thought it would be.
100%. Clemson's schedule. They open with Georgia in a game in which they might immediately regret not taking a couple transfers. App State, open date, host NC State, host Stanford, at FSU, at Wake, come home to UVA, open date, Louisville, at the Hokies, at Pitt, I think it's the Citadel logo, and then the Gamecocks in Clemson. So they don't play Miami, and they don't play. I think that's the only team that they miss of consequence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe SM, depending on your thoughts on SMU, I guess. I don't think that schedule's like that easy.
What game is Florida State, their 5th game or their 6th game?
It's their 5th game, but it's in the 6th week because they have the bye week in week 3.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be interested to see where that program is by chance if they find themselves at 3-2 again and how they respond to that. Not an easy schedule by any means, but something that Clemson fans can look at, I'm sure, and find themselves, a path to the ACC championship. I'd forgotten they opened with Georgia. Damn. Ooh.
That is in the dome. That's in the dome.
Yeah.
Although Georgia in that dome doesn't play very well. as I'm sure you know some UGA fans will remind you.
Yeah.
Although against Oregon, they did.
Yeah. True.
They beat the crap out of them. Okay, so Louisville. I think that's Austin P. Don't hold me to these FCS logos, man. Jacksonville State, open date. Georgia Tech, at Notre Dame, host SMU, host UVA, host Miami, at Boston College on a Friday, at Clemson, open date, host Stanford, at Stanford, host Pitt, Kentucky. I don't like that for them. I mean, they missed FSU, but I don't like this Notre Dame or Georgia Tech at Notre Dame, host SMU, at UVA, host Miami, at Boston College on a short week, and then at Clemson. Like that, I don't think I'm buying this Louisville team, man. Like I like Jeff Brom, got a lot of respect for him, but I bought them this year partially because of schedule, and this. I don't know if it's schedule that I'm
schedule
buying.
this year was one of the more friendly things that we've seen. And credit to them, they made the ACC championship game. 27 kids in the portal so far, something like that. I mean, they're obviously turning the locker room, and interesting. Some of their more recent additions. So they're committed to seeing how it works out in the portal.
So Paul H. wants to talk about Gilbert Edmond and how South Carolina's coach Shane Beamer said he was going to be a starter in Tallahassee. Guys, I think FSU's at a place now program-wise, and be thankful that they are, that we can largely focus on what's happening internally. And we can joke about it, and it is funny because it's pretty clear if you watch Gilbert Edmond that he was not going to be a starter, and he didn't progress quite like they hoped he would. I don't have anything against the kid. I hope he does well for South Carolina. He actually had a pretty good game against Florida 2 years ago before he came down. But I don't know, like I'm kind of over it when they're like, "Oh, this kid was going to be a starter, but he's going to Colorado." Like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. McClendon was going to start. Yeah. Right. So let me see here. Miami. This is interesting. At the Gators, which I think they better win that. Just given what Florida was this year and what the expectations are. Then FAM, Ball State, at USF. Then they come back and they play Virginia Tech on a short week, but it is at home. Then they go at Cal, open date, at Louisville, host FSU, host Duke, at Georgia Tech, open date, Wake Forest, at Syracuse. So they don't play Clemson. They don't play NC State. And they don't play SMU. This ain't quite the Louisville schedule last year, but it is fairly easy by everybody else's standards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a Miami fan, you got to be like, all right, Mario.
Yeah. Sets up well. I echo your sentiments. Week 1 needs to go well for them.
Yeah. If it doesn't, I could see some quit factor potentially. Although they didn't quit this year when they had some tough losses. Like there was a real chance I thought they could against Boston College, and they coming off the Louisville loss, and they went up there and they played hard and spanked them. So who knows? It's hard to tell. Let's skip UNC. NC State's done a pretty good job in the portal, and I know they like their team a lot, what they have coming back. Western Carolina, Tennessee and Charlotte, La Tech, at Clemson, then NIU, Wake Forest, Cuse, at Cal, open date, Stanford, Duke, open date, at Georgia Tech. And that's a Friday game, which means they get one extra day of rest to play North Carolina. So no Miami, no FSU, no SMU, no Virginia Tech for NC State. That's pretty favorable, man. That's, yeah. Pitt, skip, SMU. I'm going to skip, I think. Do I need to skip them? Yeah, they get FSU and Louisville, but they do dodge Clemson and Miami. So that's actually pretty nice for them. And then the last one I think we actually need to care about here is probably the Hokies because they do return a ton. Vandy, Marshall, Old Dom, Rutgers.
Okay.
Decent, like, non-con start that they could easily go 4-0 in.
Mm-hmm.
At Miami on short rest. At Stanford. But again, it's an extra travel day because you're coming off that. Open date. At Boston College on a Friday. But again, you're off an open date, so it's not really a problem to play a short rest week there. Georgia Tech at home. At Cuse. Host Clemson. At Duke. Host UVA. So no FSU, but they do get Miami and Clemson. And they get Georgia Tech. Of all these, I think NC State and Miami have the most favorable draws in terms of who you play, who you don't play, and where you play them and when.
Mm-hmm.
But FSU is probably like fourth among the teams. I don't know. Like, there's 3 teams to me that I think if they play to their ceiling could win it. And there's probably 4 other teams that I think if the top 3 teams all screw around and you play to your ceiling and everybody else kind of messes up, that I could crazier things have happened than, SMU, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Louisville winning if somehow Clemson, FSU, Miami all mess around.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other teams in the league just cannot do it. Like the other 9, I don't think have a real shot personally.
Yeah.
And I don't really think the last 4 that I listed have a real good shot, but I can't totally dismiss it if you know what I'm saying there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's worth. Virginia Tech's an interesting team. They're going to be okay. They've got a decent schedule. Maybe they put something together there.
Their retention was good. Like, I don't think their acquisition in the portal was anything special, but their retention was pretty good. Like, they kept a lot of guys.
They've got a fan base that's hungry to try to be competitive. It ain't never going to be 2008 again or whatever, in my opinion, when it comes to Virginia Tech football. But they're trying to put it together as much as they can.
For sure. I think we're going to break down some transfers tonight, but we've gone an hour and 5 minutes. So why don't we push that to the next show? And then we need to do our snap count draft recap and what we learned from it. And then I think we have also some Mike Norvell highlights to go over, which is pretty dope.
Nice.
And we're going to open up another pack of Seminole Legends cards.
Nice. Rob, we will also do your question. I know you've asked it a couple times. I think it's more than just a 2-minute answer at the end of a 70-minute podcast. So we've started. Yeah. It's a good question. We'll get to it.
If you want to see some live show planning, here it is. I actually talked with the guy today who's working on a project about what different states allow in terms of private equity and state government. And so what we found is Florida is actually very permissive with it, which I think you probably would expect given that FSU has been poking around the PE stuff quite a bit. But I'll probably have him on to discuss this further in terms of how you could structure this. He actually had some interesting ideas of how to structure it if you needed to go the PE route, right? But that kind of ties into what Rob's talking about a little bit. So, and it is an important question. I don't want to ignore it. See here. Shout out to the camera showing the stadium renovations. Have you been watching the stadium reno camera?
I've got a lot of friends of mine who, aren't wild at the idea of taking dope to. Yeah, it's I kind of feel like we're like doing another logo conversation a little bit. Some people are like, "Oh no, I mean I see where it needs to happen," and other people are like, "What in the world are we doing?" So, but yeah, I've got a couple group chats that aren't wild on Doke at 60K. I'll put it that way.
I'm kind of split on it.
Yeah,
I would be really more in the what the hell are y'all doing spot if Doke was in Gainesville.
Mm-hmm.
Or if Doke was closer, like just if Doke was in Athens or Gainesville or Birmingham or Tuscaloosa, which is like 70 minutes, from if it had a real like major metropolitan area and a couple like sort of ancillary metropolitan, I would be
Yeah,
much more
I mean,
pissed.
Doak's ancillary populations are like Thomasville, Cairo. Yeah, it's limited.
Yeah. 1,000,000%. So cool, buddy. This is it's been fun.
Thoroughly enjoyed it as always. Thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you to everybody that was in the chat. Great engagement. Appreciate you. Thank you to the traditional podcast listeners. Awesome to see those numbers continue to grow for a podcast that honestly I wasn't sure really was going to see a whole lot more growth when it comes to, traditional listenership. There's been such a transition over to YouTube and other ways, but it's great to see. So awesome. Appreciate all the support we've received. And we'll have another show probably Friday, I imagine.
I think Friday. I may cut a little solo one. I'm going to Battle 7-on-7 in Miami this weekend. So I may cut a little just like, hey, here's some guys that are on FSU's radar to watch out for before I hit the road on that. If you're like a serious recruiting nerd, you may enjoy that. Mm-hmm. If you're not, just download it and hit the thumbs up anyway. But I understand if you want to skip recruiting talk in very late January for the next cycle. But some people really do enjoy it. So we'll give we try to feed the diehards some here, and I think they become sort of our disciples to more of the casuals. So cool, man. We'll hit you up, and we do need to do our recap on we did defense for the transfer class with the exception of Sean Murphy, I think.
Yeah.
So I have some Sean Murphy thoughts, and which I think are mostly positive. A little question, like some things make me question, but I think I understand what they're doing that. And I think you have to give these guys the benefit of the doubt in what they do in the transfer portal. Clearly, like they freaking killed it multiple years in a row. Even if they regress some, they're still like, what are you regressing to? Like a top 5 transfer,
Right. Yeah.
And then we need to hit offense a little bit. DJ, the receivers, obviously the offensive line. It's kind of good we waited because now they took the Rizzy kid from Harvard. So
yeah, no, let's do a little spoiler alert. I think you got something in Malik Benson. I think you got very excited about what the kid's future looks like, and Roydell Williams as well. So yeah,
I like this a lot because if you look at this, the JUCO stuff was awesome, and you don't put that high of a grade on a junior college kid like this extremely high graded JUCO kid, and I mean Alabama doesn't waste a whole lot of spots on junior college receivers, and then he gets to Bama. And we'll get into it. But basically, he ran a boatload of routes and didn't do a damn thing with those routes. Yeah. All right, this is kind of concerning, but also they were running. I'm not going to call it Wildcat. That's not nice. The efficiency numbers were good. Mm-hmm. If you actually watched the passing game, like with the eyes and not the stat sheet for Bama, I'm not really sure that was all Benson's fault. So, and you only kind of need him for one thing, right? Like, hey, I need you to be really freaking fast.
Yeah, well, good. I got good news, bud. He is.
He's fast.
He's real fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that Pokey Wilson route?
Yeah.
Deep over. Yep. Repeat. Awesome. Cool, man. That is really exciting news, and we will get together again very soon.
Yep. Awesome.